Welcome to the Sleepless Historian. If you find tranquility in the quiet corners of history, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Remember to turn on loop so this soothing exploration can gently repeat. Ah, now let us dim the lights, slow our breathing, and adjust our pillows and blankets for comfort. In this moment, allow yourself to settle in, feeling the weight of the day lift from your shoulders. Breathe in and out, allowing relaxation to envelop you. Today, we will meander through the dismally unexciting history of Byzantine robe color regulations. Yes, the Byzantine Empire, renowned for its opulence and grandeur, also held a peculiar fascination with the color of its garments. The hues worn by individuals were not merely a matter of personal choice, but a careful orchestration of status and conformity. In an age where vibrant colors could signify rank and privilege, the Byzantine court meticulously dictated the palette available to its citizens, especially within the city of Constantinople. Slowly and gently, we will delve into the specifics of these regulations. We will explore how colors such as purple, gold, and even the softest shades of blue signified power, while duller tones were relegated to the less fortunate members of society. We will explore and says. Hey, Yui. The details of these guidelines were often recorded in lengthy documents, painstakingly outlining the exact measurements required for each garment. For instance, a robe made of fine silk might be adorned with intricate patterns, yet its color would determine whether the wearer was honored or simply another figure in a sea of monochrome mediocrity. As we move through this history, we will touch on the daily life of those who existed under these regulations. Their routines, their choices, and their constrained expressions will reveal a world where standing out was not an option, but rather a risk. So, breathe deeply, and let your mind wander through the muted corridors of Byzantine fashion, where conformity reigned supreme and individuality was a distant dream. Slowly and gently, let us begin this exploration together. In the Byzantine Empire, the creation and wearing of robes were not simply acts of personal expression, but rather meticulous procedures governed by an intricate set of regulations. As we ease into this exploration, let us take a moment to visualize the tools and materials that artisans employed in the process. Soft silks, vibrant dyes, and even the faintest shimmer of gold thread were essential in crafting these garments. The tools themselves, simple yet effective, included the loom, the spindle, and the dyes derived from natural sources, such as plants and minerals. Natural artisans or tailors would often work in small shops, their spaces filled with the scent of freshly dyed fabrics. The process of dyeing cloth was laborious. Fabrics were soaked in dye baths, sometimes for hours, allowing the color to seep deeply into the fibers. The shades of purple, for instance, came from the rare murex shell, a marine creature that yielded only a small amount of dye. A single robe could require hundreds of shells, making the color exceptionally precious. Once the dyeing process was complete, the artisan would lay the fabric out to dry, carefully ensuring that each piece was evenly colored, as even the slightest imperfection could result in a garment unworthy of the esteemed wearer. Next came the cutting and sewing of the robes. Measurements were carefully taken, often recorded in a simple ledger. For example, a standard length for a nobleman's robe would be around 4 to 5 cubits, equating to about 6 to 7 feet of fabric, depending on the height of the individual. Each robe was adorned with specific patterns, sometimes requiring additional fabrics for embellishment. These patterns could be intricate, featuring motifs of animals or geometric designs, each carrying its own significance. The sewing itself required a steady hand and acute attention to detail. The artisans would use needles fashioned from bone or metal, a simple yet essential tool in the crafting of these garments. The thread, often made from linen or silk, would be pulled through each piece of fabric, connecting the elements of the robe. This process could take several days, sometimes even weeks, depending on the complexity of the design and the time available for the artist. SMP. Once completed, the robes were stored in designated areas, often within wooden chests lined with soft fabric to prevent damage. The etiquette surrounding the wearing of these garments was equally elaborate. Citizens needed to be aware of the occasions suited for specific colors. For instance, purple robes were reserved for emperors and high-ranking officials. Wearing such a color without appropriate status could lead to severe penalties. The hierarchy of colors dictated a strict social order. Darker shades, such as deep blues and blacks, were generally worn by the lower classes. These individuals often found their clothing to be utilitarian, made from coarser materials. The cost of fabrics varied widely, with silk being the most expensive, and simpler wool or linen used by those of lesser means. A single fine silk robe could cost as much as a small house, whereas a simple woolen garment could be produced at a fraction of that cost, allowing for some semblance of clothing among the less fortunate. Whoa, lie. In the marketplaces of Constantinople, one could observe the delicate dance of commerce as vendors sold their wares. The fabrics were displayed on wooden stalls, their colors muted or vibrant, depending on their quality and the dyes used. Merchants often bartered, exchanging goods for services or other materials, creating a lively atmosphere of negotiation. Whoa! As we delve deeper into the daily lives of those affected by these color regulations, we can see how the choices they made were heavily influenced by the societal expectations placed upon them. For the wealthy, dressing in the latest styles became a matter of pride and prestige. The wealthy would plan their wardrobes meticulously, accounting for seasonal changes and social calendars. Dresses, tunics, and robes were often tailored to fit the latest trends, with some styles lasting only a season before being deemed outdated. This constant turnover created a cycle of consumption that kept tailors busy. Each robe would be worn only a few times before being retired to the back of the closet, or even repurposed into simpler garments for lower status individuals. On the other hand, the lower classes faced a different reality. Their garments were often made from the remnants of discarded fabrics or hand-me-downs, leading to a patchwork of colors and styles. The lack of resources meant that many individuals could not afford to replace their clothing frequently. Thus, the colors they wore reflected not only their status but also their struggles. Family members often worked together to maintain their garments, mending and stitching them to prolong their use. Mothers would teach their daughters how to sew, instilling the importance of these tasks from a young age. The act of sewing not only ensured that clothing remained functional, but also served as a bonding experience within families. The schedule for making and maintaining garments was often dictated by the seasons. Spring and summer brought lighter fabrics, while autumn and winter required heavier materials for warmth. Each season also brought its own palette of acceptable colors, with darker tones associated with the colder months. This cyclical nature of dressing became a rhythm that many families adhered to, structuring their lives around the practicalities of clothing. Now and in time, I know. As we continue to delve into the fabric of this historical tapestry, we can observe the rituals surrounding the donning of these garments. Each morning, individuals would choose their attire based on the day's activities and societal expectations. For those of higher status, attendants might assist in the dressing process, carefully laying out the robes and ensuring that each piece was in its proper place. For the lower classes, the process was often much simpler. Individuals would select their garments quickly, often in dim light, and prepare for the day ahead. The routine was efficient, focusing on practicality rather than elegance. As we reflect on the life and times of those who navigated the complexities of Byzantine color regulations, we begin to understand the vast gulf between the lives of the affluent and the struggles of the everyday citizen. The particulars of their dressing routines, the materials they used, and the colors they wore all contributed to a society steeped in tradition and expectation. Slowly and gently, let us continue to explore this world, where each thread of fabric tells a story of compliance and conformity, revealing a society bound by the colors of its robes and the regulations that dictated them. As the day began in the Byzantine Empire, individuals would rise early, often with the faint light of dawn illuminating their simple homes. The air would be cool, and a soft, rhythmic sound could be heard as the inhabitants began their morning rituals. For many, the day commenced with a careful selection of garments, dictated by not only the color regulations, but also by the societal roles they occupied. The affluent, for instance, would have their robes laid out by skilled attendants who understood the nuances of color and fabric. These attendants, often family members or trusted servants, would take great care in choosing the right hues and textures, as even the slightest misstep could have social ramifications. Why? The robes themselves were often crafted from luxurious materials, such as silk or finely woven wool. Silk, with its smooth and shiny texture, was highly prized and often dyed in vibrant colors, yet many colors remained reserved for specific classes. The attendants would examine the fabric closely, noting its weight and sheen. Each garment would be measured with precision, ensuring a proper fit around the shoulders and waist. Once the correct robe was chosen, attendants would assist in the dressing process. They would hold the robe open, allowing the wearer to step into it gracefully. The hem of the robe would sweep gently across the floor, a silent testament to the wearer's status. The attendant would then adjust the robe, ensuring that it fell symmetrically around the body. In contrast, the lower classes had a more straightforward approach to their morning attire. They would often store their garments neatly folded in a simple wooden chest, perhaps lined with a coarse fabric to protect the clothing from dust. The choice of robe was primarily dictated by functionality and available resources. These individuals would reach for their preferred garment, often a plain wool robe, which could be quickly donned without the assistance of others. The act of dressing for the lower classes was often completed in mere moments, as there was work to be done. The clothes were often of muted colors, perhaps gray or brown, reflecting the practicality of their daily lives. These hues were not the result of elaborate dyeing processes, but rather the natural colors of the wool itself. These heroes, once dressed, both the affluent and the commoners would make their way outside. But the experience of those in the upper class was markedly different. The wealthy would often walk through their grand homes, adorned with intricate mosaics and detailed frescoes, while the lower classes would navigate their modest streets, lined with simple dwellings. Throughout the day, the attire of the Byzantines would serve as a constant reminder of their place within society. The color of their robes dictated not only how they were perceived, but also how they interacted with others. Those who wore the vibrant hues of crimson or gold would be met with respect and deference, while those in less striking colors might find themselves overlooked in the bustling marketplace. In the marketplace, the colors of the robes would blend into a sea of monochrome mediocrity. Vendors would call out their wares, their voices blending into a soothing hum. The scent of fresh bread and ripe fruits would waft through the air, mingling with the sounds of quiet conversation. As the day progressed, individuals would gather for meals, often dressed in their finest robes, even if the feast was modest. Etiquette dictated that meals should be taken seated on low benches or cushions, allowing for ease of conversation. The colors of the robes would provide a backdrop to the gathering, each individual's attire reflecting their status and role within the community. When breaking bread, the act was performed with care and consideration. The bread would be shared, often broken by hand, and passed around the table. The robes would brush against one another, a gentle reminder of the social ties that bound them. After meals, the act of cleaning would begin, a routine as mundane as dressing itself. The wealthy might summon attendants to assist in tidying their garments, smoothing out any wrinkles that had formed during the meal. The lower classes, however, would often take it upon themselves to shake out their robes, ensuring that no crumbs remained. As the sun began to set, the colors of the robes would appear more muted, softened by the fading light. The evening gatherings would often be quiet, filled with gentle conversation and the sound of fabric brushing against fabric. Individuals would share stories of their day, their robes enveloping them in warmth and familiarity. The process of dressing and undressing was an intrinsic part of life for every Byzantine. Every robe carried a weight of history and expectation, a reminder of the regulations that governed their society. Each thread was woven with purpose, each color chosen with care. As the day came to a close, individuals would prepare for sleep. The garments, once vibrant and full of life, would be carefully hung or folded. The affluent would place their robes on ornate hooks, while the lower classes might simply toss their garments into a corner, ready to don them again with the dawn. Slowly and gently, the day would come to an end, with the soft sounds of night wrapping around the weary bodies, the color of their robes fading into the darkness. The routines of dressing and undressing, the quiet conversations and the shared meals would blend into the fabric of their lives, each moment a small part of the larger tapestry of Byzantine existence. The rituals surrounding the colors of Byzantine robes were as intricate as the fabric itself. The hues, though seemingly mundane, were a tapestry of rules and traditions. Each color bore significance, and each shade was imbued with meaning. The colors were sourced from natural dyes, painstakingly extracted from plants, minerals, and even insects. These materials were then transformed into vivid pigments, which artisans would mix with water and a binding agent, creating a liquid that could stain cloth. The process of dyeing fabric required careful measurement. A standard length of cloth, often around 3 meters, would be submerged gently into the dye bath. The artisans would monitor the cloth, stirring it slowly, ensuring an even distribution of color. This could take several hours, and the artisans had to be vigilant. The colors could shift and change with each passing moment, influenced by the temperature of the water and the concentration of the dye. Once the fabric was dyed, it would be hung to dry in the gentle sun. The drying process was crucial, as it allowed the pigments to set into the fibers. After a day or two of drying, the cloth would be ready for tailoring. The tailors would measure and cut the fabric, often using simple tools: a wooden ruler, a pair of sharp scissors, and a sewing needle made from bone or metal. The robes were then stitched together with meticulous care. Each seam was reinforced, and the hems were meticulously finished to prevent fraying. The tailors would often use thread that matched the color of the fabric, ensuring a seamless appearance. This attention to detail was celebrated in Byzantine society, where even the smallest imperfection could draw unwanted attention. Once completed, the robes would be stored in special chests or on shelves. The affluent families often had ornate chests made from cedar wood, lined with fragrant herbs to help preserve the garments. These chests would be secured with locks, ensuring that the precious textiles were protected from moths and moisture. For the lower classes, storage was much simpler. Fabrics were often folded and placed in a corner of their modest homes. These garments, while less ornate, were still a source of pride, and individuals took care to keep them clean. Laundry days were spent scrubbing the fabric with soap made from natural oils and ash, ensuring that each piece remained vibrant. In the early morning hours, as the sun began to rise, the Byzantine people would awaken. The sound of birds chirping outside would harmonize with the rustling of robes being pulled from their resting places. The ritual of dressing was a communal affair. Families would gather in shared spaces, each member taking turns to prepare for the day ahead. Dressing took time. Individuals would first don a simple undergarment, often made from linen, which was light and breathable. Then came the main robe, which varied in style depending on social status. The rich would wear elaborately designed garments, complete with intricate patterns and embellishments. Conversely, the working class would choose more practical styles, focusing on durability over decoration. Once dressed, individuals would take a moment to appreciate their reflection. Mirrors, often made of polished metal, were placed in strategic spots around the home. The act of adjusting a robe, smoothing out any wrinkles, and checking that the fabric fell gracefully, as they prepared for the day, families would gather for breakfast. Meals were simple, often consisting of bread, olives, and perhaps a small portion of cheese. Conversations flowed slowly, punctuated by the soft sound of clothing rustling. The colors of their robes blended into the background, a muted palette of browns, grays, and occasional splashes of color, dictated by the day's role or occasion. Throughout the day, etiquette dictated that individuals would interact with each other based on their robe color. It was common for members of the same social class to congregate, their colors creating a visual harmony. Those wearing darker shades would often avoid brighter hues, as the latter were reserved for the elite. The intricacies of these color-coded interactions were not merely superficial. They were tied to the very fabric of Byzantine society. Each color carried weight and expectation, a silent language spoken through fabric. The affluent, draped in deep purples and royal blues, were expected to exhibit confidence and authority. Meanwhile, those in muted earth tones were encouraged to blend in, to remain unnoticed in the bustling streets of Constantinople. Enne, Uni. As the day progressed, individuals would take great care to maintain the condition of their robes. The wealthy might employ servants to assist in the upkeep of their garments, ensuring that each piece remained pristine. This often included brushing the fabric to remove dust and using special oils to preserve the luster of the colors. For those without such luxuries, the task fell solely upon themselves. The routine of caring for their clothing was a meditative practice, a moment of stillness in a busy world. Each rub and stroke of the fabric was a reminder of their place in society, a gentle nudge to remain humble and diligent. Evenings would bring gatherings, where individuals would come together to share news and stories, their robes swaying gently as they moved. The atmosphere was often filled with the aroma of prepared meals, and the colors of their garments seemed to dim in the fading light. Conversations would ebb and flow, much like the patterns of the fabric, creating a rhythm that echoed in the air. As the day drew to a close, the process of undressing would begin once more. The garments, once vibrant with the energy of the day, would be carefully removed, folded, and stored away. This act was often done with a sense of reverence, as each robe held memories of interactions and experiences. Now, the world outside would quiet down, the colors of the day fading into the background. Slowly and gently, the rhythm of life would settle into a peaceful lull, the routine of dressing and undressing becoming a soothing mantra. The night would envelop the city, drawing the curtains of darkness over the vibrant hues that had animated their lives. Each robe, now hanging silently, continued to tell the stories of a society intertwined with color, etiquette, and the gentle flow of daily existence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the evening rituals of the Byzantine people began to unfold. In the dimly lit chambers of their homes, individuals would commence the tender process of caring for their robes. A simple wooden chest would be retrieved, its surface smooth and familiar. Inside, neatly folded garments awaited attention, each one a testament to the day's events. The fabric, made from fine wool or silk, had been carefully selected for its color and texture, reflecting the wearer's status and taste. With delicate hands, the individual would lift out a robe. Its weight felt lightly against their fingers. The fabric, often dyed in hues of purple, blue, or green, had been treated with care to maintain its vibrancy. Slowly and gently, the robe would be unfolded, revealing the intricate patterns woven into the material. These patterns often told stories of loyalty and devotion, echoing the values upheld by the Byzantine society. The process of maintaining these garments was meticulous. A small wooden comb, carved from local timber, would be used to smoothen out any creases. Each stroke would be deliberate, ensuring the fabric was free of tangles. The comb's teeth, finely spaced, would glide through the fibers, restoring the robe's natural flow. For those with more intricate designs, a soft cloth would be used to dab at any smudges, ensuring the vivid colors remained unblemished. Mm. Ah. After the initial grooming, the individual would turn their attention to the storage of the robes. Each garment was carefully assessed for any signs of wear, small imperfections noted with a gentle sigh. A simple repair kit, located in a nearby drawer, contained a few spools of thread, a needle, and some patches in various colors. These tools, humble in appearance, held the power to restore and mend, reflecting the values of resourcefulness and care. The threads themselves were often made from linen or cotton, dyed to match the robe's hues. Each spool was stored in a small hand-carved box, a treasure trove of colors waiting to be employed. The method of sewing was straightforward, involving careful stitches that would weave in and out of the fabric, securing any loose edges. This process was meditative, a moment of quiet focus that allowed the individual to reflect on their day. Once repairs were completed, the robes were folded with precision, each fold measuring approximately 6 inches, ensuring they fit snugly into the wooden chest. The individual would take a moment to admire the neatness of their work, the colors harmonizing in a soft palette of tones. Each fold was a gentle reminder of the life they led, a life intertwined with the simplicity of fabric and form. With the robes now properly stored, attention would shift to the accessories that accompanied them. A small wooden box, decorated with intricate carvings, contained belts and brooches, essential elements in the Byzantine attire. Slowly and gently, each item would be lifted, inspected, and then returned to its place. The belts, often made of leather or fabric, would be rolled carefully, maintaining their shape. The brooches, fashioned from metal and sometimes adorned with gemstones, would be polished lightly with a soft cloth, ensuring their luster remained intact. These accessories served not only as decorative elements, but also as symbols of identity and rank. The colors and materials used often indicated a person's status within the complex social hierarchy of the Byzantine Empire. A simple gold brooch might denote wealth, while a woven fabric belt could suggest a more modest standing. Each selection was made with care, reflecting the nuances of daily life. As the evening wore on, the ritual of preparing for the next day would continue. A small bowl of water, infused with fragrant herbs, was often used to cleanse the hands after handling the robes and accessories. This act was not only practical, but also intended to create a sense of calm and readiness for the day ahead. The water would glisten under the soft light, each droplet a reminder of the gentleness that permeated their lives. In the final moments of the evening, individuals would often sit quietly, contemplating the events of the day. The wooden chest, now closed and secure, would serve as a constant reminder of their heritage and the expectations woven into the fabric of their society. Slowly and gently, the mind would drift over the threads of memory, each one a connection to the past, a soft lullaby of daily existence. Wow. The sound of the city outside would fade into a backdrop, the gentle whispers of the night wrapping around their thoughts like a comforting embrace. The routine of undressing and redressing, of caring for their garments, was a soothing rhythm, a mantra that marked the passage of time. Each day would bring a new opportunity to engage with the colors and fabrics that defined their lives. Sigh. As the night deepened, the robes would remain in their chest, waiting patiently for the dawn to bring new light and new possibilities. The individual would close their eyes, allowing the soft recollections of the day to swirl gently like the fabric itself, undulating in a quiet dance of serenity. Within the confines of their home, the world would slip away, leaving only the simple pleasures of color, fabric, and the calming routine of preparation. Each breath would deepen, each moment would stretch, as they became enveloped in the warmth of their own thoughts, surrounded by the echoes of their history, the subtle hues of their lives. Eh? As the evening settled softly over Constantinople, the air became thick with the scent of incense and the muted sounds of distant conversation. In the quiet corners of homes, individuals prepared for the next day, focusing on the careful selection and maintenance of their robes. Colors, though strictly regulated, held significant weight in the lives of those who wore them. Each hue told a story, an unspoken language of status, occupation, and respect. A typical household would possess a simple wooden chest, perhaps ornately carved, but mostly functional. This chest was a sanctuary for the robes, a place for the fabrics to rest, folded neatly and stored with care. The average chest might measure around 3 feet in width, a comfortable size for holding a modest collection of garments. Each robe would be folded with precision, ensuring that the fabric lay flat, without creases, ready for the new day's wear. The fabric itself, often a mixture of silk and wool, would shimmer faintly in the dim light, a reminder of the craftsmanship that had gone into its creation. The tools of this nightly ritual were few yet essential. A soft brush, made from the fur of a small animal, perhaps a rabbit or a weasel, was used to gently remove any dust that had settled during the day. One might take care to hold the brush at an angle, using light strokes to maintain the delicate fibers of the fabric. This brushing would take approximately 5 minutes, allowing the mind to wander to the thoughts of the day ahead. Next, a small bowl of oil, perhaps olive oil or a specially prepared blend, would be brought forth. The oil would serve multiple purposes. It could nourish the fibers and add a subtle sheen to the fabric. A few drops would be placed on the fingertips, and then, with deliberate care, the individual would work the oil into the fabric, focusing on the seams and edges. This process, tranquil and rhythmic, could take another 10 minutes, as the individual would find solace in the repetition, the familiar scent of the oil merging with the air. Each gentle touch would remind them of the importance of their attire, a daily ritual of connection to their heritage. Once the robe was cared for, the decision about which color to wear the next day would arise. Byzantine regulations dictated a range of colors allowed for various social standings. The most prestigious individuals would often don the regal purple, a color extracted from the murex snail, which required thousands of snails to produce just a small amount of dye. This dye was costly, and acquiring it could take weeks, even months. A robe dyed in this hue was like a treasure, a statement of power and authority. For those of lower status, colors like brown, gray, or simple white were commonplace. These colors were less expensive, achieved through more readily available dyes made from plants and minerals. The process of creating dyes was meticulous and labor-intensive, often involving boiling roots or soaking fabrics in various solutions. This could take days, as the color developed slowly, little by little, transforming the mundane into something more vibrant. After selecting the color, the fabric was prepared for the next day's wear. A careful calculation was made regarding how the robe would be draped upon the body. The average length of a robe was around 4 to 6 feet, depending on the individual's height, with sleeves that could extend to the wrist or slightly beyond. The width of the fabric was often about 2 feet, allowing for a graceful fall as it enveloped the wearer. Folding the robe was an art in itself, each fold precise to maintain its integrity. The individual would take the robe and lay it flat, smoothing out any wrinkles, ensuring that it was ready to be worn. The sleeves would be folded back gently, ensuring that the fabric would not snag or tear in the night. This folding process would typically take about 5 minutes, a quiet endeavor, reflecting the importance placed on appearance within society. Once the robe was prepared, thoughts would turn to accessories. Belts, often made of leather or woven fabric, would be selected to complement the chosen color. These belts would be approximately 2 inches wide, cinching the fabric at the waist, providing both structure and style. Careful consideration was given to the belt's color and texture, ensuring harmony with the robe. The average cost of a fine belt could vary, from a few coins for a simple design to a small fortune for intricately woven patterns adorned with precious stones. As one prepared for bed, a soft linen cloth was often laid over the robe, protecting it from dust and potential damage. This cloth was typically around 2 feet square, made from a breathable fabric that allowed for air circulation, ensuring the robe remained fresh for the morning. The act of placing this protective cloth over the robe was a signal of respect for the garment, a quiet ritual that spoke volumes about the values held by the individual. The evening winds would whisper through the open windows, carrying with them the sounds of the bustling city. In the stillness of their home, the individual would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling slowly, feeling the cool air fill their lungs. This moment of quiet reflection was an essential part of the evening routine, a time to acknowledge the day that had passed, and to prepare for the day yet to come. As sleep beckoned, the mind would drift to the knowledge that tomorrow would bring yet another opportunity to engage in the delicate dance of color and fabric. The robes, their colors and textures, were not merely clothing, but an extension of identity, a connection to the rich history of the Byzantine Empire. Each thread woven into the fabric told a story, a reminder of the traditions and expectations that shaped daily life. In this world of monochrome possibilities, each choice was made with care, each color a reflection of societal norms. The individual rested easy, knowing that their carefully maintained robes awaited them, like trusted companions ready to accompany them into the day. As the shadows deepened, they settled into their pillows, lulled by the comforting thoughts of fabric, color, and the gentle ebb and flow of the evening's rituals. In the quiet embrace of sleep, the mind would continue to wander through the endless hues of history, each color a pathway back to a time when garments held more than just fabric, but a sense of belonging and identity. As they drifted deeper into slumber, the sounds of the city faded further, leaving only the soft rustle of fabric and the tranquil rhythm of breath. As the evening settled into a gentle hush, the daily rituals of the Byzantine citizens unfolded with a comforting predictability. The streets, paved with stones that had weathered countless footsteps, carried the soft sound of fabric brushing against itself. Robes, draped over shoulders, were not just garments. They were a canvas of colors regulated by an intricate system of etiquette and social hierarchy. Each hue was imbued with meaning, designated for specific occasions and social standings. The selection process for these robes began early in the day. Tailors, expertly trained in the art of fabric and color, prepared their workshops. Spools of thread, carefully arranged, showcased a spectrum of options from deep indigos to muted ochres, each color a testament to the dyer's craftsmanship. The fabric itself was often a luxurious silk, painstakingly woven on looms that required careful calibration. Each thread measured approximately 2 millimeters in width, creating a delicate yet sturdy textile. You. To create these robes, tailors would begin by laying out the fabric with precision, measuring lengths with a wooden yardstick. A standard robe for the average citizen would typically require between 3 to 5 yards of fabric, depending on the desired fullness of the garment. This fabric, once measured, would be cut with sharp, straight scissors, their blades gleaming softly in the midday sun. The cuts had to be exact, for the beauty of the robe rested on the lines drawn by the tailor's hand. Once cut, the fabric would be gently laid out on a large wooden table, its surface worn smooth from years of crafting. Here, the tailor would pin the pieces together, using small, brass pins, their heads reflecting the light like tiny stars scattered across a night sky. This process could take up to an hour, as the tailor ensured that every pin was placed carefully, allowing for the perfect fit once the sewing began. With the pieces secured, the sewing would commence. Using a sturdy needle, the tailor would begin stitching the fabric together, often opting for a simple running stitch, which was both practical and effective. Each stitch was methodically placed, approximately 5 millimeters apart, creating a seam that was both strong and flexible. The sound of the needle piercing the fabric was a calming rhythm, echoing the heartbeat of the workshop. In the realm of colors, certain shades were reserved for specific classes and occasions. The imperial purple, a color derived from the rare murex snail, was closely regulated by the state. To wear this hue was to claim a status that few could attain. The cost of such a dye was exorbitant, often requiring the collection of thousands of snails to produce a mere ounce. This, of course, was a price beyond the reach of ordinary citizens, who would instead adorn their robes in more accessible colors, such as earthy browns, soft greens, and muted blues. Oh, as the robes neared completion, attention turned to the intricate details that would adorn them. Embroidery, often executed by skilled artisans, added a touch of uniqueness to each garment. The embroidery thread, made from gold and silver, would be meticulously laid out, requiring hours of delicate stitching. Each design told a story, perhaps a family crest or a symbol of loyalty, woven carefully into the fabric. The final step in the creation of these robes was the pressing. A heavy iron, heated over an open flame, would be used to smooth out any wrinkles. This task required patience, as the temperature needed to be just right, too hot, and the delicate silk would scorch, too cool, and the fabric would remain creased. The soft hissing sound as the iron met the fabric was a familiar lullaby to those who inhabited the world of Byzantine robes. In the homes of the citizens, the process of donning these garments was equally meticulous. Each morning began with the careful selection of a robe, a choice influenced by the day's activities and social engagements. A citizen would rise, the morning light filtering softly through their windows, casting gentle patterns on the floor. They would reach for their robe, the fabric cooled to the touch, and hold it up to their body, allowing it to drape gracefully. A simple, yet effective method to fasten the robe was employed. A long matching sash, often in a complementary color, would be wrapped around the waist. This sash served both a decorative and functional purpose, cinching the robe to create a flattering silhouette. The ends of the sash would be tied into a neat bow, a small but important detail reflecting the care taken in personal presentation. Once dressed, citizens would engage in their daily routines, moving through the streets, their robes trailing behind them like whispers of history. The marketplace would welcome them with the gentle sounds of commerce. Merchants, seated at wooden stalls, would display their wares under the soft glow of the sun. The vibrant colors of fruits, vegetables, and spices contrasted with the more subdued tones of the robes, creating a visual harmony that was soothing to the eye. Nai. As they moved through the marketplace, the citizens would engage in the delicate dance of etiquette. Greetings were exchanged softly, with heads bowed slightly, acknowledging the colors of one another's robes. A simple nod was often accompanied by a compliment. "Your green robe is lovely today." This exchange, though seemingly mundane, reinforced the social fabric of Byzantine life. In the age-old custom of dining, the colors of the robes would again play a significant role. Guests invited to a banquet would arrive adorned in their finest robes, often boasting intricate embroidery and vibrant colors, reflecting their status. The dining table, laden with food, would be a feast for the senses, drawing attention away from the monochrome nature of everyday life. As the meal commenced, etiquette dictated that the host would serve the first course, typically a warm broth made from lentils or vegetables. The guests, seated on cushions, would partake in the meal, their robes flowing elegantly as they reached for their bowls. Each spoonful was taken with care, the act of eating a shared experience, binding the community together in a simple yet profound way. Hence, when the day came to a close, the rituals would wind down. Citizens would return to their homes, shedding their robes after a long day. The garments, now imbued with the sense of the market and the warmth of shared meals, would be carefully hung in designated spaces. Each robe had its own place, a testament to the care taken in maintaining these symbols of identity. The evening would bring a sense of peace. Citizens, enveloped in the embrace of their homes, would reflect on the day, the colors of their robes lingering in their thoughts. With the soft caress of the evening air, they would lay down, allowing the soothing rhythm of the day to wash over them. Their robes, now resting, would await another day of purpose, another day of color, another day of connection. Slowly and gently, they would drift into a tranquil sleep, surrounded by the echoes of their monochrome lives, woven together in an intricate tapestry of history. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of twilight, the citizens of Byzantium would undertake a quiet ritual. Their robes, meticulously chosen for the day, would find their way back to their respective storage areas. Each household typically had a designated space, a simple wooden chest, or perhaps a woven basket, where these garments would rest, awaiting their next outing. These chests were often crafted from locally sourced wood, such as oak or cedar, known for their durability and pleasant aroma. Families would take care to keep their storage areas organized, ensuring that each robe was carefully folded. The process was gentle and methodical. As the fabric was smoothed out, the edges tucked in. This folding ritual brought a sense of calm, a moment of mindfulness amidst the day's busyness. The materials of the robes themselves were noteworthy. Wool and silk were the most common fabrics, each with its own unique qualities. Wool, being more accessible, was often dyed in muted shades, while silk, a luxury reserved for the affluent, allowed for a grander expression of color. The dyeing process was an art form in itself, requiring careful attention to detail. Dyers would gather natural materials such as indigo for blue, madder for red, and various plants for shades of green. Each color was derived from a precise method, often involving long hours of boiling and soaking. The result was a range of hues, but many would settle for the more subdued tones that matched the regulations set forth by the imperial authority. In the morning, as dawn began to break, a gentle routine would unfold. Citizens would rise, stretching softly, their bodies releasing the tension of sleep. They would begin by selecting their robes for the day, considering the day's activities and the weather. A simple ritual, but one filled with significance. Each color choice, each fabric, tied them to their role in society, their duties, and their community. Once a robe was chosen, the citizens would pay attention to the care of their appearance. They would take a moment to inspect the fabric, checking for any signs of wear or need for mending. The act of mending was a communal experience, often done in the company of family or friends, with laughter and conversation filling the air. Small tools, such as needles made of bone or metal, would be used to thread delicate strands of yarn, weaving patches over any frays. This process of repair was not just practical, it was a way to connect. Families would share techniques, passing down knowledge from one generation to the next. The color of the thread used for mending usually matched the robe, maintaining a sense of cohesion, a gentle whisper of unity in a world of regulations. As the day progressed, the schedules of the citizens would begin to unfold. There was a rhythm to their lives, a series of unwritten rules governing how and when to wear their robes. Morning gatherings at the agora, or marketplace, were common. Here, citizens would don their garments, carefully ensuring that they adhered to the color codes of their respective classes. The merchant class would often wear shades of brown and gray, while senators might sport deeper blues or greens, each hue a reflection of their standing in society. The marketplace was a vibrant yet orderly place. Stalls filled with goods lined the streets, and the air would be heavy with the scent of spices and baked bread. Citizens would greet each other warmly, their robes flowing softly with each movement. Conversations would revolve around daily life and trade, punctuated by the gentle sound of coins clinking and the rustle of fabric. The interactions were simple, yet they held the essence of community. As the sun climbed higher, the citizens would transition into their afternoon routines. Many would take part in activities that required them to showcase their robes more prominently. Artisans, for example, would wear their finest garments when presenting their crafts to patrons. The act of creating was often done while adorned in layers of fabric that signified their skill and dedication. The tools of the artisans were varied depending on their craft. Potters would have clay-stained robes, while weavers might sport threads of vibrant colors in their attire. These daily tasks created a cycle of labor and artistry, each day intertwined with the fabric of their lives. As the afternoon faded, the citizens would begin to prepare for the evening's gatherings. A gentle sense of anticipation would fill the air. Families would take time to ensure their robes were clean and presentable, often using a simple wash of water and a mild soap derived from natural ingredients. Once their robes were cleaned, they would be laid flat to dry, the fabric absorbing the warmth of the sun. The drying process was vital, as damp robes could become heavy and uncomfortable. This attention to detail, this gentle care, was a reflection of their pride in their appearance and their role in society. Evening gatherings often centered around communal meals, where citizens would come together to enjoy food and conversation. Once again, the robes would be donned, each individual carefully adjusting the drape of their attire as they prepared to engage with their neighbors. The soft rustle of fabric would fill the air as families moved towards the designated gathering spaces. The act of sitting together, sharing stories, and enjoying meals created a warm atmosphere, filled with laughter and the clinking of plates. The robes in their muted colors would blend harmoniously, creating a sea of monochrome as they settled around the tables. After the meal, the gentle ritual of cleaning up would commence. Citizens would take care to fold their robes once more, preparing for the next day. They would often engage in soft conversations, reflecting on the day's events, the colors of their garments silently reminding them of their shared experiences. One do you paint to wear? Melbourne, Cassius, in the Noir. As the day drew to a close, the citizens would return to their homes, each robe holding the stories of the day, the laughter, the connections, and the quiet moments of reflection. With each garment carefully hung in its place, they would settle into the comforting embrace of their homes, ready for rest. And so, as night enveloped the city, the robes would rest, awaiting another day of purpose, another day of color, another day of connection. Slowly and gently, the citizens would drift into sleep, surrounded by the echoes of their monochrome lives, woven together in an intricate tapestry of history. In the Byzantine Robe, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the citizens of Byzantium engaged in their evening rituals, a series of well-practiced activities that transformed the end of the day into a soothing routine. The first step in this nightly process involved the careful removal of their robes, those muted garments crafted from wool and linen, each piece a testament to the city's long-standing traditions. The robes, often in shades of beige, gray, and soft blue, bore little distinction from one another. Yet, within this lack of color, lay a profound sense of unity among the citizens. As individuals stood in their modest abodes, they would methodically unfasten their robes, utilizing a simple wooden hook fashioned from a sturdy branch to hang their garments. This hook, a commonplace object in many homes, was often placed near the entrance, allowing for easy access as individuals returned from their daily activities. The process was deliberate. First, the left sleeve would be slipped away, followed by the right, and finally, the robe would be eased over the shoulders and down, allowing it to settle softly onto the hook. Once hung, the robes would drape gently, the fibers absorbing the ambience of the evening. Citizens often took a moment to smooth the fabric, running their hands along the seams, ensuring that no creases marred their garments. This small act of care was not merely for aesthetics. It was a ritual of respect, honoring the garments that served them throughout the day. After their robes were hung, the citizens would gather around their wooden tables, the surfaces worn smooth over time, adorned with simple pottery and modest utensils. Here, they would partake in a light evening meal, a simple fare of bread, olives, and cheese. The preparation of this meal was a meticulous endeavor, often taking place well before sunset. Each evening, a designated family member would rise early in the afternoon to gather ingredients from the local market. The market, bustling with activity, was an essential aspect of daily life. Vendors called out, showcasing their goods, often weighed on small scales made of brass, carefully measuring out portions for the eager buyers. The price of the evening meal was never exorbitant, usually amounting to a few coins, the currency of the time. The exchange was a simple process. Coins would be passed from hand to hand, sometimes clinking softly against one another, creating a gentle rhythm that accompanied the market's lively atmosphere. Once the ingredients were procured, the family member would return home to prepare the meal. This preparation was often a collaborative effort, with each person assigned a specific task. One might knead the dough, their hands working the soft flour until it reached a smooth consistency, while another would slice the olives, their sharp knife gliding through the dark flesh. As the meal came together, the smell of freshly baked bread would fill the room, a comforting aroma that signaled the day's end. This process of cooking was not rushed. Rather, it was a gentle unfolding of flavors and textures, a time for conversation and connection. Once the meal was ready, the family would gather around the table, each member settling into the rhythm of the evening. They would share stories, recounting the day's events, weaving their individual threads of experience into a shared narrative, their voices soft and calming. The muted colors of their robes seemed to blend seamlessly with the atmosphere, creating a cocoon of familiarity. After dining, the next step in their routine involved the cleanup, a task approached with the same care and attention as the preparation of the meal. Citizens would take turns washing the dishes, the gentle sound of water splashing against earthenware, providing a soothing backdrop. As the dishes were scrubbed, each person would engage in light conversation, discussing the flavors of the meal, the texture of the bread, and any notable occurrences of the day. They would take care to rinse each dish thoroughly, ensuring that no remnants of food lingered to spoil the tranquility of the evening. Once the dishes were clean and dried, citizens would turn their attention to their robes once more. This was a time for reflection, for appreciating the fabric that had accompanied them through the day's labors. They would check for any signs of wear or tear, inspecting the seams and hems for any fraying threads. Should they find any imperfections, they would carefully mend them, using simple needles and thread, often in the same muted colors as the robe itself. This act of mending was not merely a chore, but a gentle reminder of the importance of care and preservation. The stitches, tiny and precise, would weave stories of their own, creating a tapestry of daily life, each thread holding memories of moments shared, laughter exchanged, and the quiet solitude of reflection. With the evening's tasks completed, citizens would often gather in small groups, perhaps in a corner of their home or at a neighbor's abode, where the soft glow of oil lamps illuminated their faces. These gatherings were characterized by a sense of calm and community. The citizens would settle into their spaces, their robes enveloping them in warmth, as they shared tales of old, recounting the history of their city, the origins of their muted garments, the significance of the colors they wore. The conversations flowed gently, each voice rising and falling like the soft tides of a distant sea. As the night deepened, the city grew quiet. The oil lamps flickered softly, casting shadows that danced upon the walls. Citizens would begin to feel the weight of the day upon them, their eyes growing heavy as they relished the simple joys of companionship and shared stories. Eventually, as the clock in the town square chimed softly, marking the late hours of the night, families would start to retire to their beds. They would slip into the cool sheets, the linens fresh and lightly scented, providing a gentle comfort against their skin. In those final moments of the day, each citizen would reflect on the colors of their lives, the robes that wrapped them in connection, the meals that nourished their bodies, and the laughter that filled their homes. Slowly and gently, they would drift into sleep, their minds weaving dreams as soft and muted as the garments they wore. A tapestry of simple shared existence in the heart of Byzantium. As the dawn of a new day approached over the cobblestone streets of Byzantium, the air hung thick with anticipation. The artisans and merchants, the weavers and dyers, began their daily rituals, preparing for the routines that shaped their lives. In the early morning light, the weavers would gather their tools, simple yet essential instruments of their craft. Looms made of sturdy wood, stretched with fine threads of linen and wool, awaited their skilled hands. They would sit cross-legged upon woven mats, the rhythmic sound of the shuttle sliding through the threads creating a tranquil melody. Little by little, they would transform plain textiles into vibrant swathes of color. Although many would opt for muted tones in adherence to the regulations of their time, the dyeing process began with careful measurements. A careful eye would gauge the quantity of fabric, often a length of 3 to 4 ells, that would be dipped into the dye pots. The pots themselves, made of clay and often lined with an inner layer of resin, would simmer over gentle fires. The dyers, with hands stained in hues of indigo and saffron, would ladle the dyes, ensuring that the colors infused the fabrics evenly. Colors were precious. The cost of obtaining them varied greatly. The deep purple, reserved for the elite, was derived from the murex snail, a creature of the sea. To create just 1 ounce of this regal dye required thousands of snails, a labor-intensive process that made this hue a symbol of status and wealth. The price of such a garment could be equivalent to a small fortune, measured in gold coins, and thus it was often worn only by emperors and those of high rank. For the common citizens, the colors available were much more subdued. Earthy tones predominated, with colors like ochre, brown, and muted greens becoming the staples of daily wear. These colors were derived from natural sources, such as plants and minerals, which were readily available. The process of dyeing with plant materials was relatively straightforward. Leaves, roots, and flowers were boiled in water to extract their colors. The weavers would gather these natural dyes in small clay jugs, storing them carefully under cool, dark conditions to preserve their potency. Once the fabrics were dyed, the next step was cutting and sewing. Seamstresses, often women of the household, would gather around low tables, their nimble fingers working the needle and thread. The robes they created were simple yet elegant, often featuring long sleeves and flowing lines that draped gracefully over the body. Each robe required careful measuring. The average length would be around 5 to 6 ells, ensuring a comfortable fit for the wearer. The etiquette surrounding these garments was as important as the colors themselves. Citizens were expected to wear their robes according to the occasion and their social standing. In the marketplace, one would see a spectrum of colors, albeit muted, signaling the roles of the individuals. Merchants wore practical shades to convey their status as providers, while artisans donned slightly brighter hues, perhaps in a bid to reflect their creative spirits. Every aspect of the robe mattered. Even the way it was draped could communicate a message. Citizens learned to navigate the intricate social cues woven into the fabric of their attire. Young men, for instance, would often leave the sleeves of their robes slightly open, a sign of casualness, while older men would typically keep their sleeves neatly adjusted, reflecting wisdom and respect. One day, as the sun rose higher, the sounds of daily life filled the streets. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, mingling with the earthy aromas of the dyeing workshops. The markets began to bustle, and the citizens would slowly emerge from their homes, their muted robes trailing behind them like whispers of the night. In the marketplace, transactions were conducted with a measured calmness. Prices were rarely shouted. Instead, they were discussed softly, often with an air of respect. The merchants would carefully roll out bolts of fabric, displaying the various colors available, even if those colors were not as vibrant as one might hope. Customers, with a keen eye for quality, would examine the texture, the way the fabric felt against their skin, and how it draped when held up to the light. Once a transaction was agreed upon, payment would be exchanged with the utmost care. Coins, made from gold, silver, or copper, would be weighed on small balances crafted from fine wood. The clinks of metal against metal were soothing sounds, creating a gentle rhythm that harmonized with the soft conversations around. After shopping, citizens would return home, their arms laden with their purchases. The act of carrying their bundles was almost ceremonial, each item wrapped in linen or carried in woven baskets, a reflection of their careful selection. The return home was often a peaceful journey, allowing for moments of reflection. They would often pause to admire the muted colors of their surroundings, the way a light changed throughout the day, shifting the hues of the walls and streets. As evening fell, the city quieted. Families would gather around their tables, sharing meals that echoed with the simplicity of their lives. The color of their food mirrored the muted tones of their garments: stews of lentils, bread with a golden crust, and fruits bathed in soft colors of yellow and green. Conversations were soft, filled with the warmth of shared stories, much like the robes that enveloped them. After dinner, the day would slowly draw to a close. Children would begin to find their way to their beds, sleepy eyes drawn by the comfort of their homes. Their robes, worn throughout the day, would be set aside, perhaps folded neatly or draped over a chair to await the morning. Parents would tuck them in, smoothing the linens and whispering tales of old, tales that carried the essence of their shared history. Stories that were as muted as the colors of their garments. Well, in those final moments before sleep, as the lanterns flickered softly in the corners of their rooms, thoughts would drift to the colors of their lives. The simplicity of their existence wrapped them in a sense of calm, the understanding that they were part of a larger tapestry, woven together by threads of shared experience. Little by little, they would succumb to the soft pull of sleep, lulled by the gentle repetition of their daily routines, the colors of their robes fading into the quiet embrace of night. Mwah. As the sun set beyond the horizon, casting soft hues of orange and lavender across the sky, the world of Byzantine robes took on a serene and muted charm. Each day within the empire, the colors of the robes were not merely choices of fashion, but reflections of the meticulously regulated social order. The hues available were predetermined, reflecting the hierarchy and structure that governed daily life. To begin the process of donning a robe, one would first choose the fabric. The most common materials were wool and silk, each offering its own texture and warmth. Wool, often sourced from local sheep, would be spun into threads, dyed in shades dictated by the law. Silk, a more luxurious option, was imported from distant lands, its smooth surface a testament to the artistry of the weavers. The dyeing process itself was a careful art, performed with exactitude. Natural dyes were extracted from plants, minerals, and even insects. For example, the rich purple of Tyrian dye was derived from the murex snail, requiring thousands of snails to produce just a small amount of dye. This labor-intensive process would take days, as the snails were carefully harvested and their secretions processed. The result was a color that symbolized royalty, yet remained out of reach for most. Once the fabric was prepared, it would be cut into various shapes. The robes were often long and flowing, designed to envelop the wearer comfortably. Measurements were taken meticulously, ensuring that the hem would sit just above the ground, allowing for ease of movement while maintaining an air of elegance. Tailors would typically use simple tools: a measuring tape, a pair of scissors, and a needle for stitching. The actual crafting of a robe could take several days, depending on the intricacies of its design. A simple tunic, for instance, might require just a few hours of sewing, while a more elaborate garment, adorned with embroidery or embellishments, could take weeks to complete. This embroidery was often done using gold thread, glimmering softly against the muted colors of the fabric. Once completed, these robes would be carefully stored. A dedicated space in the home, often a wooden chest or a simple wooden rack, would serve as the repository for these garments. It was important to maintain cleanliness, as fabric could easily accumulate dust. A soft cloth, perhaps made from cotton or linen, would be used to cover the robes, protecting them from the elements. In the morning, the routine of dressing began again. One would rise early, the soft light of dawn filtering through the windows. A gentle stretch, a deep breath, and then the ritual of dressing commenced. The chosen robe would be lifted from its resting place, the fabric cool against the skin. It would be carefully put on, the sleeves slipping over the arms, the body enveloped in warmth. As each person dressed, they would consider the color of their robe. The regulations surrounding colors were strict and often reflected one's status. For instance, the commoners wore shades of brown and beige, colors that blended into the background of daily labor. The wealthy donned deeper hues, the noble class sporting the rich reds and purples that signified their elevated rank. The act of choosing a color was not merely personal, it was a statement of identity. Wearing the wrong color could lead to misunderstandings or even penalties. Imagine the gentle murmur of voices in a marketplace, each robe a reflection of the social ties that bound the community. The colors of the robes created a soft palette, one that blended into the daily rhythm of life. As one ventured out into the world, the daily tasks would unfold. Entering the marketplace, the clamor of vendors selling fruits, grains, and textiles would fill the air. Yet the colors of their robes would create a sense of order. Each hue harmonized with the others, a sea of beige, brown, and muted reds, creating a tapestry of soft colors that ebbed and flowed like gentle waves. Throughout the day, tasks were performed with a sense of purpose, each individual contributing to the larger community. Farmers tended to their fields, artisans crafted their goods, and merchants negotiated prices. The soft sound of fabric brushing against fabric accompanied each movement, a comforting reminder of the shared fabric of life in Byzantine society. At noon, the sun would reach its zenith, casting a warm glow over the bustling streets. People would gather for their midday meals, sharing simple dishes that nourished their bodies and spirits. As they sat on woven mats or wooden benches, the colors of their robes became a backdrop for laughter and conversation. Little by little, the shared meal would dissolve the boundaries created by color. After the meal, there would be a moment of pause, a brief respite from the day's labors. Some would find shade beneath trees, resting their eyes for just a moment. The soft rustle of leaves and the distant sounds of laughter would create a lullaby of the everyday, soothing and calm. When the sun began to dip once more, casting a golden hue over the land, the routines would shift again. People would begin to return home, their robes slightly wrinkled from the day's activities. A gentle shake would restore some order to the fabric, smoothing it out before entering the home. Once inside, the evening rituals would commence. The family would gather, recounting the day's events. The colors of their robes would take on a new significance, each hue telling a story of labor, community, and identity. The warmth of the home, the flickering light of candles or oil lamps, would create a cozy atmosphere, one that embraced them as they settled in for the night. Ah, Cavalier. Ine, Iosito, Isit. The careful routines of dressing, working, and gathering would continue day after day, each moment as mundane as it was comforting. The colors of their robes would fade into the background, becoming a gentle reminder of the unexciting yet necessary regulations of life. Each hue, each fabric, each stitch was a part of the shared experience, quietly weaving together the fabric of existence in the Byzantine era. And so, as night fell and the world outside grew quiet, the colors of the day would rest alongside the wearers. Robes would be folded, their colors softened in the dim light, awaiting the promise of another day, another cycle of life in a tapestry woven with care and calm. Nisani, Igan T. Isgama, Ia, oh. As the day began to wane, the household would transition into a gentle rhythm of preparation. The evening would call for the careful folding of the day's worn robes, a task that was both simple and rewarding. Families would gather in their designated spaces, perhaps in a cozy corner of the main room, where the cool air mingled softly with the warmth of the family's shared presence. Each member would take their turn, engaging in the familiar routine of folding and storing their garments. The first step would involve laying the fabric out flat. The robes, often made of wool or linen, would be placed on a smooth surface, perhaps a wooden table or a well-worn piece of cloth on the floor. The colors of the fabric would vary depending on the individual's status and occupation. Lower-class citizens might don robes of muted browns and grays, while those of higher standing would be adorned with richer hues, perhaps deep reds or vibrant blues. The task of folding required a soft touch, a delicate precision. Starting with one sleeve, the wearer would gently fold it inward towards the center, creating a neat line along the edge. The other sleeve would follow suit, mirroring the first. This action would create a long rectangle, a simple shape that conveyed both order and simplicity. With patience, the robe would then be folded in half, the top meeting the bottom, and then folded once more, further condensing its form. Once neatly folded, the robes would be set aside in a designated storage area, perhaps a woven basket or a wooden chest. These storage solutions were often adorned with intricate carvings, evidence of the craftsmanship that characterized Byzantine artistry. The containers would be placed in an accessible location, often near the front entrance, allowing for easy retrieval in the morning. A sense of calm would envelop the room as the family moved in synchrony, the gentle sound of fabric folding harmonizing with the soft murmurs of conversation. Oh, in a manner akin to choreography, each family member would take turns, engaging in the simple act of garment care. The children, perhaps still learning the intricacies of the task, would mimic their parents' actions, their small hands clumsily yet earnestly attempting to fold the fabric. This was not merely a task. It was a lesson in responsibility, a gentle introduction to the importance of caring for one's belongings. As the robes were stored away, thoughts might drift to the next day's activities. The family would often discuss what colors they would wear, what tasks awaited them in the bustling marketplace, or what materials they might need for their daily work. The marketplace itself was a veritable tapestry of colors, but in the confines of their home, the hues of their robes were a comforting reminder of their place within the community. The act of dressing in the morning was equally systematic. The first light of dawn would filter through the windows, casting a soft glow across the room. As each family member awakened, they would rise slowly from their resting places, perhaps stretching gently before beginning the day's rituals. The first task was to gather the folded robes, carefully selecting the colors that would represent them throughout the day. The selection process was often thoughtful. The wearer would consider the weather, the tasks ahead, and perhaps even the company they might keep. A more vibrant robe might be chosen for a busy day in the market, while a plain garment could suffice for quieter, more solitary activities. This process was reflective, a moment of mindfulness amidst the morning rush. Once the robes were chosen, the act of dressing would commence. One would begin by stepping into the robe, allowing the fabric to drape gently over the shoulders. The weight of the material, often around 2 to 3 pounds, depending on the thickness, would settle comfortably against the body. The sleeves would be adjusted, ensuring that they sat correctly at the wrists, allowing for ease of movement. Let's say, the waist would be cinched with a simple cord or sash, often made of a contrasting color to add a touch of visual interest. This cord would be tied in a soft knot, ensuring the robe remains secure throughout the day's activities. The process, while routine, was imbued with a sense of purpose, each motion deliberate and measured. As the household prepared for the day, the sound of faint chatter and the rustling of fabric would fill the air. Perhaps there would be reminders to one another about the day's responsibilities or soft laughter as a child struggled to properly fasten their robe. Each moment was a small vignette of life, a gentle reminder of the shared experience of family. The colors and patterns of the robes were not mere adornments. They were a reflection of the societal structure that governed daily life. Certain colors were reserved for particular classes, a silent yet powerful reminder of one's place within the hierarchy. Those of noble birth might wear intricate patterns, while the lower class adhered to a more muted palette, a reflection of their societal roles. This adherence to color regulations was not just a matter of fashion. It was a method of maintaining order, a visual representation of the social fabric that held the Byzantine Empire together. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the family would venture out, the soft embrace of their robes a protective layer against the world outside. Each movement was purposeful, each step measured as they navigated the streets of their community. The robes swayed gently, the colors quietly asserting their presence without overwhelming the senses. Throughout the day, the rituals of life would unfold. The marketplace would buzz with activity, vendors calling out, customers bargaining and children playing nearby. The colors of the robes would blend into a tapestry of activity, each hue a part of the greater whole. The wearers moved through this vibrant world, their garments a constant reminder of the order and structure that defined their lives. As evening approached, the robes would once again be shed, the day's colors fading into the memory of another cycle. Families would gather to recount their experiences, the colors of their garments now a part of the shared narrative. The fabric would be gently folded once more, ready to rest until the dawn of a new day. And so, the cycle of dressing, working, and unwinding would continue, each moment a part of a larger rhythm, a soft lullaby of daily existence. The colors, though regulated and subtle, were woven into the very fabric of life, creating a gentle reminder of the beauty found in the mundane. Each hue, each routine, each stitch formed a delicate connection to the past, quietly guiding them through the ebb and flow of life in the Byzantine world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft golden light upon the cobblestone streets of Byzantium, the evening's calm settled in. the marketplace began to quiet. Vendors packing away their goods, their brightly colored wares neatly arranged within wooden crates. The ritual of closing for the day was methodical and soothing. Each item was carefully wrapped in linen cloth, preserving its integrity until the sun rose again. The gentle rustle of fabric accompanied the sound of wooden boxes being closed, a soft, rhythmic melody of evening. In households across the city, the removal of garments marked the transition from the public sphere to the private. Each robe, whether in the subdued shades of blue or the muted tones of green, was laid aside with care. This process, although simple, was imbued with a sense of reverence. The robes were often made from a blend of wool and linen, the fibers soft yet durable, designed to withstand the passage of time and the wear of daily life. To maintain the quality of these garments, they were typically stored in wooden chests, often lined with soft cloth to prevent any damage. Families would take care to fold each robe neatly, aligning the seams so that no creases marred the fabric. This gentle folding was a ritual in itself, one that spoke to the values of order and respect for one's belongings. This folding process could take several minutes, especially for those more ornate pieces, adorned with subtle embroidery that reflected the wearer's status. The threads used for embroidery were often dyed in the same muted colors as the robes, creating a harmonious blend. The embroidery was executed with great precision, often by skilled hands trained in the art of needlework from a young age. Children would observe this process, learning the importance of patience and care, as each stitch was a testament to time spent in the service of beauty. Once the garments were folded, they would be placed gently within their designated space. This was often a family affair, with each member understanding their role. A mother might oversee the organization, while a father would ensure that the space was clear and ready for the next day's attire. Children would often be assigned to retrieve the necessary items from the chest, learning the routine of preparation as they moved slowly and purposefully through the dimly lit room. The preparation for the next day included a careful selection of robes. The practice of choosing attire was not taken lightly. It involved thoughtful consideration of the events planned for the day. Perhaps a visit to the marketplace required a more practical robe, while an afternoon meeting might call for something a touch more formal. The subtle variations in fabric and color were discussed quietly, decisions made with a calm deliberation that echoed the gentle rhythms of life. Each robe had its own story, woven into the very fabric of the city. The hues that characterized these garments were often the result of painstaking processes. Dyes were derived from natural sources, plants, minerals, and even insects. The process of dyeing was meticulous, requiring a precise measurement of each ingredient to achieve the desired shade. A dyer might spend hours gathering materials, measuring them carefully, and then boiling them in large clay pots. The resulting colors, while often muted, were a source of pride. After dyeing, the fabric would require further treatment. It was rinsed thoroughly, then hung to dry in the cool evening air. The scent of fresh dye and wet wool would mingle softly, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. Once dry, the fabric would be pressed, a gentle heat applied to smooth the surface, ensuring that it would drape beautifully upon the wearer. In the quiet moments of preparation, etiquette played a significant role. There were rules for how to present oneself in society, and those extended to the choice of robe. The colors worn during different times of the year, or for specific occasions, were dictated by tradition. For instance, during festivals, more vibrant shades were permitted, but during ordinary days, the preference leaned towards the understated. This adherence to color regulations created a subtle harmony across the city, where each individual, in their muted tones, became part of a greater tapestry. As the new day dawned, the routine of dressing began anew. Each family member would rise with the sun, their bodies stretching softly into the new day. The morning light would filter through windows, casting gentle shadows as they moved about their tasks. The first step involved retrieving the chosen robe from the storage chest, the fabric cool to the touch. Dressing was a deliberate act, often accompanied by soft conversation or the quiet sounds of the household awakening. A mother might help a child adjust their robe, ensuring that it sat comfortably on their shoulders. The gentle tugging and smoothing of the fabric became a soothing ritual, a moment of connection before the day unfolded into its many responsibilities. As they dressed, the robes would be adjusted carefully, ensuring that each fold fell natural. The sleeves would be rolled up if necessary, or a sash would be tied snugly around the waist, providing both form and function. This attention to detail, while seemingly mundane, was a way of honoring the day ahead. Once dressed, families would gather for a simple morning meal. The table might be set with modest dishes, the focus more on the company than the food. Conversations would flow gently, discussing the plans of the day, the tasks at hand, and the roles each person would play. The colors of their robes served as a backdrop to these interactions, a constant reminder of the structure that governed their lives. Well, after breakfast, the daily routines would commence. Children would head off to their studies, teachers skilled in the arts of rhetoric and philosophy. Adults would depart for the marketplace, the sounds of their footsteps echoing against the stones. Each movement was part of a larger rhythm, one that was repeated day after day, season after season. In this world of muted colors and regulated garments, there existed an unspoken bond among the citizens. The shared experience of dressing, of folding, and of wearing the colors of their time created a sense of unity. Each individual, though distinct, blended seamlessly into the greater narrative of Byzantine life. And so, the cycle of color and fabric continued, a quiet dance of daily existence. The robes, though simple in hue, were woven with the threads of history, culture, and community. Each day unfolded like the last, a gentle reminder of the beauty found in the unremarkable, a soft lullaby of life in a world of muted tones. As evening arrived once more, the rituals would repeat, ensuring that the stories of each garment lived on, woven into the fabric of time. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a soft glow over the Byzantine streets, the evening rituals began to unfold with a gentle grace. The air was scented with the faint aroma of herbs and spices, remnants of the day's meals lingering in the atmosphere. Households would slowly prepare for the evening, a process steeped in tradition and routine. In the kitchens, simple wooden tables were set with care. The tools of the trade were humble and practical: wooden spoons, clay vessels, and woven baskets. Each item had its place, each utensil carried its purpose. The pots would be filled with stews, simmering slowly over the low flames of a hearth, the heat crackling softly, a comforting sound in the evening stillness. As the sun continued to set, families would gather around the table. They would share stories of their day, their voices a soothing murmur in the dim light. The children, having returned from their studies, would recount their lessons, their words weaving together the threads of knowledge passed down through generations. Adults would listen attentively, nodding in understanding, affirming the value of education and communal sharing. After the meal, it was customary for everyone to partake in the cleaning. The dishes, made of simple clay, were washed with a gentle touch. Water would be poured from an earthen jug, the sound of it filling the air like a soft song, the splashes rhythmically calming. Each dish was scrubbed with a coarse cloth, then stacked neatly for drying, the process a meditative ritual in itself. As darkness enveloped the city, the focus would shift to the preparation for sleep. Fabrics were folded and stored away with care. The robes, worn throughout the day, would be hung on wooden pegs or draped over a simple stool. The hues of the garments, so carefully selected, would slowly fade into the shadows of the evening. Each color, though muted, held significance. The mundane task of storage became a moment of reflection, allowing for the acknowledgement of the day that had passed. The evening hours would often find families engaged in quiet pursuits. Some would take up the art of weaving, threads gliding through fingers with practiced ease. The rhythmic motion was soothing, the repeated movements creating a sense of calm. The loom, a simple wooden frame, would stand proudly in the corner of the room, the fabric being crafted taking shape slowly, little by little. Others might choose to read or recite poetry, their voices soft and melodic. The words would flow gently, resonating through the air like a lullaby. Candles flickering on the table, casting soft shadows, would illuminate the pages, their light dancing along the carefully penned lines. The act of reading was not merely a pastime. It was a connection to the past, a way to honor the wisdom of those who had come before. As the hour grew later, the rituals would take on a more personal tone. Each person would prepare themselves for rest, a process filled with tender care. Garments for sleep, simple and unadorned, would be donned. The fabric, soft against the skin, would embrace them like a gentle sigh. Robes were removed from their pegs, their fibers whispering as they brushed against one another. The act of changing was a moment of transition, a bridge from the busyness of day to the tranquility of night. Tapanodai, Adi. The dimming of lights signaled the winding down of the day. Flickering candles were extinguished one by one, the soft puffs of smoke trailing into the air, dissipating like fleeting thoughts. The room would grow darker, the shadows deepening, wrapping around the family like a comforting blanket. Each member would find their own space to settle. Layers of woven blankets would be pulled close, enveloping them in warmth. The soft textures would create a cocoon of comfort, a safe haven against the chill of the night. As they nestled into their bedding, the faint sounds of the city outside would fade into the background. One could hear the distant echoes of the day fading away, the chatter from the marketplace now replaced by the soft rustling of leaves. The world outside would become a distant memory as the gentle heartbeat of the household took center stage. In the quiet, thoughts would drift like clouds in the sky, meandering softly, unhurried. Each thought was a thread in the tapestry of life, woven together with the experiences of the day. There was no rush, no urgency, just the slow ebb and flow of existence. As slumber approached, the mind would begin to settle. A final glance at the robes hanging quietly, a final reminder of the day's colors, would bring a sense of peace. The simplicity of the garments, their muted tones, became a symbol of the life lived, the stories shared, and the bonds formed. And so, the night deepened, enveloping the city in its quiet embrace. The stillness was profound, a gentle reminder of the calm that comes with rest. In this moment, the mundane transformed into the extraordinary, the simple routines of life blending into a soothing lullaby. Each breath taken was a step further into tranquility, a gentle descent into the world of dreams. The rhythms of the past would continue to echo softly in the chambers of their minds, reminding them of the beauty found in the unremarkable. The robes, the meals, the shared stories, each thread woven into the fabric of their lives. Ah, ah. Little by little, the warmth of sleep would wrap around them, a soft cocoon of comfort. With each passing moment, the weight of the day would lift, replaced by the feather-light sensation of drifting into rest. As the night wore on, the city of Byzantium would slumber peacefully, the muted colors of its garments hanging like memories, whispering tales of a life lived in quiet dignity. The robes, though unexciting in color, held the stories of those who wore them, the unassuming beauty of existence woven into every fiber. Wow. Aye. The cycles of day and night continued, a soothing rhythm, a gentle assurance that in the embrace of simplicity, one could always find a home, a sanctuary of rest. Each robe, a testament to the lives intertwined, would remain a steadfast reminder of the quiet elegance that lay within the mundane. Oh, Byzantine Robe. And so, in the dim glow of night, the tales of Byzantine life would continue to weave their soft, comforting fabric, cradling the dreams of all who had come before. Yea. Ah. In the heart of Byzantium, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, the city would gradually quiet, the sounds of daily life fading into a gentle lull. In the workshops and homes, the artisans of the Byzantine Empire prepared for the rituals of the morrow. Each day began with the soft light of dawn, illuminating the simple tools of their craft. Looms crafted from sturdy wood, with threads of cotton and silk, stood ready to weave the garments that would define their world. No. The weavers, skilled in their trade, would begin their day early. They would select the finest fibers, carefully measuring lengths of about 10 meters or more, depending on the desired garment. A simple robe, known as a chiton, would require about 3 meters of material for a standard adult size. The process was methodical and soothing, each thread passing through the fingers with a gentle rhythm, creating patterns that would be worn by citizens and nobles alike. Each color, though often muted, was significant. The dyeing process, a task that required both time and patience, involved natural materials such as walnut husks, indigo plants, and madder roots. The weavers would prepare their dyes in small clay pots, measuring carefully, approximately 1 part dye to 4 parts water, to ensure the colors would not overwhelm the earthy tones favored in Byzantine fashion. Little by little, the pots would simmer over a low flame, releasing scents that blended with the morning air, a delicate aroma of nature's palette. Niente. Easy. As the dye cooled, the weavers would immerse the threads, watching as they transformed, little by little, into shades of deep blue, rich brown, or soft green. Each hue was painstakingly documented in ledgers, the pages filled with neat columns of names and measurements, a record of colors used and their sources. The ledgers themselves were simple, crafted from thin sheets of papyrus, bound with twine, and stored carefully in wooden boxes, ensuring they remained safe for future reference. Once the dyeing process was complete, the threads would be hung to dry in the warm sun. This was a moment of tranquility, as the weavers would step back, their hands resting at their sides, watching the colors deepen. The sun would travel across the sky, casting shadows that danced lightly around them. They would wait, sometimes for hours, ensuring that each strand dried evenly, absorbing the sunlight's gentle warmth. After drying, the threads would be wound into spools. Each spool would hold about 50 meters of thread, enough for several garments. The spools were stored in wooden crates, carefully labeled with the colors and types of thread, ensuring easy access when needed. The organization of these materials was crucial, a small but important routine that would save time when the day's work began. The day would progress into afternoon. It was during this time that the fabric was cut. The weavers, with their sharp iron scissors, would measure the cloth against a simple pattern, often drawn on parchment, a guide that indicated where to cut. For a chiton, the pattern would outline a simple rectangular shape, about 1.5 meters wide by 3 meters long. The cutting, a quiet act of creation, was done with care, ensuring that each piece would be symmetrical and that no fabric would be wasted. As the pieces were cut, they would be stacked in neat piles. The weaver would then begin the process of stitching, using a needle crafted from metal, with a slender eye to guide the thread. The stitching was often done by hand, a slow and deliberate task. Each seam would be reinforced with an average stitch length of 2 millimeters, creating a durable bond that would withstand the wear of daily life. The etiquette of dress was as important as the crafting itself. In Byzantine society, one's status and profession were often indicated by the color and style of one's robe. However, the unassuming palette limited the potential for individuality. The weaver, understanding the significance of these choices, would often consult with the wearer before finishing a garment. This conversation was gentle, respectful, a moment where preferences were shared and decisions weighed. Would the garment be worn for a formal occasion or casual gathering? Each answer shaped the final product. The finishing touches included hems, cuffs, and sometimes embellishments. These embellishments, though often minor, could include simple embroidery, a delicate stitch of gold or silver thread added to the cuffs or the neckline. The process of adding these details was a meditative task, requiring focus and a steady hand. Each stitch, each fold, was a moment of connection, an opportunity to infuse a little personality into an otherwise monochrome existence. Once completed, the robes would be pressed. The weavers would use flat stones or wooden boards, applying gentle pressure to smooth out any wrinkles. This was a ritual in itself, performed with care and patience. The smoothness of the fabric was a point of pride, a final step that transformed the ordinary into the slightly extraordinary. The completed garments would be folded carefully and stored in the workshop, each robe placed in a designated space to avoid creasing. The shelves, made of sturdy oak, would hold the fruits of labor, a collection of muted colors ready to serve the community. The act of storage was almost sacred, a moment to appreciate the work completed, the lives touched by each robe. As evening approached, the weavers would often gather to share a simple meal. This would be a time of camaraderie, where stories of the day's labor would be exchanged. They would sit on low benches, sharing bread and cheese, the meal simple but nourishing. Little by little, laughter and conversation would fill the air, creating a warm atmosphere of belonging. With full bellies and calm hearts, the weavers would reflect on the day's work, their voices low and soothing, a gentle hum against the backdrop of the night. The city of Byzantium would quiet once more, the streets dimly lit, the garments resting in their quiet spaces, waiting to be worn, to tell their stories again. Wait. And so, as the night deepened, the weavers would retire, the soft sounds of their work still echoing in their minds, a rhythmic lullaby of fabric and thread, of colors and patterns, of a life lived in gentle simplicity. The robes would hang quietly, each one a testament to the artistry of their makers, a reminder that in the unremarkable, there is a profound beauty waiting to be discovered. Ah, little by little, the warmth of sleep would wrap around them, a soft embrace, inviting them to rest and dream, cradled by the soothing whispers of their everyday lives. Me. As the morning sun crested over the rooftops of Byzantium, the weavers would awaken to the soft light filtering through their windows. The gentle illumination would cast a warm glow upon their humble abodes, revealing the tools of their trade resting quietly in the corners. The looms, crafted from sturdy timber, stood ready for the day's work, each one a testament to the skill and craftsmanship of its maker. The delicate threads, organized by hue and texture, awaited the skilled hands of the artisans, each color precisely chosen to meet the stringent regulations of their beloved empire. The weavers would begin their day with a ritualistic approach, a methodical start that set the tone for the hours ahead. They would first select their raw materials, often sourced from nearby markets. The price of silk, a favored choice for its luster and softness, would fluctuate with the seasons. On good days, a single bolt of silk, measured at approximately 25 yards, might cost 3 soldi, a considerable sum for many artisans. On other days, during the harvest of silkworms, the prices could drop slightly, allowing the weavers to indulge in a wider palette of colors. In winter, in our way, little by little, the weavers would gather their selected threads, carefully measuring out lengths with a wooden yardstick, each foot marked with meticulous precision. The yardstick itself, smooth and worn from years of use, would be a familiar companion, guiding their choices as they prepared to create the robes that would eventually adorn the citizens of Byzantium. With each cut of thread, they would breathe in the earthy aroma of the fibers, a scent that mingled with the dust of the workshop, a scent that felt like home. Once the threads were measured, the next step was to prepare the loom. The loom, a complex apparatus of horizontal and vertical beams, required a delicate touch. The weavers would gently thread the warp strands through the heddles, a process that demanded patience and precision. Each heddle would guide the threads, ensuring that they lay perfectly parallel, ready for the intricate dance of weaving. This process took a considerable amount of time, often 2 to 3 hours, a mindful practice that allowed the weaver to settle into a rhythm, a gentle cadence of creation. After the warp was set, the weavers would begin to weave the weft, a process that involved a shuttle, crafted from smooth wood, gliding gracefully between the warp threads. The action was almost meditative, the shuttle flying back and forth, as the weaver concentrated on the pattern emerging before their eyes. The patterns themselves were dictated by the regulations of the time, often simple yet elegant, favoring monochromatic schemes that exemplified the Byzantine aesthetic. Colors were often limited to deep reds, royal purples, and soft creams, each hue imbued with its own significance and status. The etiquette surrounding robe color was strict. The ruling class would often reserve the richest colors, such as imperial purple, for themselves, while the common folk would be limited to more muted tones. This hierarchy extended to the weavers, who were well aware of the unspoken rules dictating their craft. Little by little, they learned to navigate the expectations, creating garments that adhered to societal norms, yet still allowed for a touch of personal artistry within the confines of established color palettes. Annie. As the day progressed, the weavers would take breaks, stepping away from their looms to rest their hands and clear their minds. They would sip from clay cups filled with cool water, or perhaps a herbal infusion, a soothing ritual to keep them centered and refreshed. The conversations during these breaks would remain soft and subdued, often revolving around the nuances of their craft or the latest happenings in the bustling market. These moments of camaraderie were essential, providing a gentle reminder of the community that surrounded them. When the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows across the workshop, the weavers would return to their looms. They would check their progress, inspecting the rows of fabric for consistency and quality. Each inch of cloth produced was carefully examined, ensuring that the weft was tightly woven and the colors vibrant yet harmonious. The weavers had developed an eye for detail, a skill honed over countless hours spent at the loom. They understood that their work would not only clothe their neighbors, but also tell a story through its texture and hue. As twilight approached, the weavers would begin to prepare for the final stages of their day's work. The robes they had painstakingly crafted would be trimmed, the edges finished with a simple hem. Using sharp, handmade scissors, they would snip away any excess threads, ensuring a clean and polished appearance. This meticulous attention to detail was a hallmark of their craft, a way of honoring the materials and the labor that had gone into each garment. The finished robes would then be hung on wooden racks, allowing them to breathe and settle. Each piece would be carefully arranged, the colors blending softly, a quiet symphony of fabric. The weavers would step back, admiring their handiwork, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over them. Each robe was a testament to their skill, a reflection of the time spent in dedicated labor. The simplicity of the colors, the precision of the cuts, all combined to create garments that whispered of the wearer's status and place within the grand tapestry of Byzantine life. As the evening settled in, the weavers would close their workshops, locking the doors with care. They would take one last look at the rows of hanging robes before heading home, a soft sigh of satisfaction escaping their lips. The streets would be dimly lit by flickering oil lamps, casting a gentle glow that danced upon the cobblestones. With each step toward home, they would carry the weight of their day behind them, the soft rustle of fabric accompanying their thoughts. Once home, a simple meal would await, perhaps a bowl of lentil stew or a loaf of fresh bread. They would gather around a low table, the warmth of shared company easing the fatigue of the day. The conversation would flow gently, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of bowls, a soothing rhythm that echoed through the evening air. As they ate, the weavers would reflect on the colors and patterns they had worked with, the garments that would soon grace the shoulders of those in their community, each piece woven with both care and history. Little by little, as the meal concluded, sleepy eyes would begin to close, the day's labor gently fading into the background. The weight of their work, of the colors and the threads, would settle softly, an invitation to rest. The world outside would quiet, the sounds of the city dimming into a lullaby of nighttime whispers. With each passing moment, the weavers would drift further into the comfort of their surroundings, wrapped in the embrace of the everyday, lulled by the rhythm of their lives. Day. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting soft shadows across the cobblestone streets, the weavers would begin to settle into their evening routines, each step methodical and calming. The tools of their trade, simple yet essential, would be carefully placed within reach. Looms, wooden and sturdy, would stand quietly in the corners of their homes, awaiting the returning hands of their creators. Each loom was a unique reflection of its owner, bearing the marks of countless hours spent crafting fabric, a gentle testament to the labor they poured into their art. Inantimissima, laterasor. Indonis. The weavers would take stock of their materials, the threads and fibers that spoke in vibrant hues and soft textures. Each roll of wool, each spool of silk was stored with care, nestled in woven baskets or hung on simple wooden pegs. The careful organization was crucial. It allowed for quick access during the day's work. A well-prepared workshop meant smooth transitions from one task to another, ensuring that the rhythm of weaving was not disrupted. A moment spent searching for lost materials could break the flow, and so they kept everything in its rightful place. As twilight settled in, the weavers would gather their tools for the next day's work, laying out their threads with precision. The vibrant colors they had chosen were often dictated by the subtle laws of Byzantine fashion, which dictated a certain order to colors, a certain hierarchy that ruled the hues one could wear. Beyond the vibrant reds and rich purples reserved for the elite, the common populace wore muted tones of beige, gray, and brown, their garments blending seamlessly into the environment, a tapestry of anonymity. And, aside, the weavers, aware of these rules, would often select their colors with intent, for it was not only a matter of personal expression, but also one of social standing. The price of the threads varied widely. A spool of deep indigo might cost several coins, while a humble bundle of beige wool could be acquired for much less. These economic considerations weighed heavily on their choices, shaping the pieces they would create. Little by little, they learned to balance their creativity with the constraints of their society, weaving a fabric of existence that was both beautiful and practical. Each evening, as the evening meal came to a close, the weavers would take a moment to prepare for sleeping. They would carefully fold their fabric, the soft grains of the fibers slipping through their fingers, the colors dimming in the low light. This gentle act was almost meditative, a way to honor the work they had done throughout the day. Each fold, deliberate and slow, signified a commitment to their craft and the vibrant history of the garments that would soon emerge from their hands. With their materials neatly stored, they would settle into their resting spaces, perhaps a simple bed of straw and linen, a far cry from the sumptuous silks of the wealthy. As they lay down, they felt the weight of the day's labor drift away, the gentle embrace of the night enfolding them in comfort. The quiet of the evening would wrap around them like a familiar blanket, and soon their eyelids would grow heavy. Indeed, the patterns of life continued steadily in the city, with each day offering a new rhythm. The weavers adhered to a strict schedule, rising early to take advantage of the soft morning light. As the sun began to rise, they could be seen stretching and yawning, the sounds of the city awakening with them. The early hours were crucial, for the light was gentle yet sufficient to illuminate their work without straining their eyes. As dawn approached, the weavers would light a small oil lamp, the flickering flame casting a warm glow upon their tools. The first task of the day would often involve measuring new lengths of fabric, a task that required both care and precision. Using simple wooden rulers, they would measure out the desired lengths, marking their measurements with chalk or small notches in the wood. The lengths required for garments varied significantly, depending on the intended wearer and their social status. A simple tunic for a child might need only 2 yards, while a flowing robe for a dignitary could demand 5 or more. The weavers would note these specifications carefully, ensuring that each piece adhered to the standards set by the community. Once the lengths were measured and marked, the weavers would move to the dyeing process. The dyes, made from natural sources like plants and minerals, were prepared with care. A pot of water would be set over a low fire, and the chosen dye materials would be added slowly, allowing the water to warm and the colors to diffuse gently. The air would fill with earthy, fragrant aromas, a soothing reminder of the natural world that surrounded them. The weavers would stir the mixture with a wooden stick, observing the way the colors deepened and shifted, finding joy in the transformation. I say, when the desired shade was reached, the weavers would add their prepared lengths of fabric, submerging them carefully to ensure an even coating. The fabric would soak for a predetermined time, often a matter of minutes, allowing the dye to penetrate the fibers fully. Afterward, the fabric would be rinsed in cool water, the colors settling into their final forms. Once dried, the pieces would shine softly, ready to be transformed into garments. As the week progressed, the weavers would follow similar patterns, each day a gentle repetition of the last. On market days, they would gather in the town square, their goods displayed with care. The colors of their creations would stand in contrast to the muted tones worn by the townsfolk, yet they would not overshadow the rules of color. Each piece was priced carefully, taking into account the materials used and the labor invested. A well-crafted garment could fetch a decent price, but it was vital that the weaver did not overstep societal norms in their choices. In the marketplace, transactions were slow and deliberate. The weavers would engage in polite conversation with potential buyers, discussing the intricacies of their work. The buyers, often clad in simple garments, would examine the quality of the fabric, running their fingers over the soft threads, appreciating the craftsmanship. Each sale was more than a mere exchange of goods. It was a moment of connection, a shared appreciation for the effort that went into each piece. Indeed. Once the day's business was concluded, the weavers would return home, their profits gathered in small leather pouches, the clinking of coins a familiar sound. Each coin represented hours of labor, careful planning, and the delicate dance of color and design. As they walked, they would reflect on the day's events, the lessons learned, and the satisfaction of a day well spent. With each step toward home, the soft rustle of fabric would accompany their thoughts, a gentle reminder of the world they had created with their hands. As night settled in once more, the cycle would begin again, the days blending into one another, a soft and rhythmic existence. The weavers lived in a world of color regulations and muted fabrics, but their hearts held the vibrancy of creativity. In the quiet of their homes, the weavers found solace. They embraced the simplicity of life, weaving not only fabric, but also the threads of their daily experiences. With each passing day, they continued to build their legacy, one stitch at a time, in a world that often preferred silence to spectacle. Anyway, in our exploration of the Byzantine Robe color regulations, we gently wandered through the quiet corridors of history, where the hues of fabrics were meticulously dictated by societal norms. We observed how these regulations, seemingly mundane, shaped the daily lives of individuals, limiting expression in a tapestry of monochrome. The subtle distinctions in color indicated status, yet the overwhelming sameness created a landscape of muted tones, softly reminding us of the constraints placed upon creativity. As we settle down in this tranquil moment, imagine a quiet room, dimly lit, where the world outside fades away and your body finds rest. The gentle rhythm of your breath becomes the only sound as peace envelops you like a soft blanket. If you found comfort in our journey today, consider liking or subscribing, or perhaps leaving a comment. And remember to turn on loop so the soothing sounds continue to cradle you into sleep.